everybody. My name is Lars Abel, and I'm the director from the Nordic Association, the Nordic Toys Association, and I would like to welcome you here on behalf of the TIE and on the Swedish Association and the Nordic Association and the Commission, but I will let that go on to Catherine later on from TIE. As said, we are having this international, I would say, anyway, Nordic and the Baltic seminar today about the Toy Safety Directive. And we are happy that so many people have wanted to be here, a lot more. And the last week, a lot of people have going in and out of the program. That's life. The program is very tight for today, and therefore we will go on very shortly here. After me, Moon will come here and give a welcome too, and then we'll let Catherine from TIE go more in detail. I have one very practical detail which you should help us to make formally okay. I have a list here. You have to sign it. Most of you have done, but if you have not, I will let it just go around here. So please sign, because we have to give documentation that we are here together today for the Commission. I think it's really important for all of us. But once again, welcome to this seminar. I hope we will have a very fruitful day together. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Uni Tjäder from the Swedish Toy Association. I would, of course, also would like to wish you very welcome, and I'm very happy to see that you are so many interested in this seminar. The Swedish Toy Association has more than 200 members, and we're quite unique because we represent both retailers and suppliers. We also work very actively with toy safety issues and standardization, and we have a very good dialogue meetings on a regular basis together with the Swedish Chemical Agency and the Swedish Consumer Agency in order to exchange information about the terms and conditions for the industry. We also work very actively on an international basis. We're very active in the ICTY and ICTY care process. ICTY care process, in that sense, we're also very unique because it's about fair labor treatment of toy workers in Asia, and we are one of the few trade organizations who actually has as a requirement for membership that you have to sign a document of conformity. I also would like you to urge you to ask questions to all the experts here, and you can ask the questions in Swedish, and we will translate the questions. So I wish you all a very fruitful seminar. And now, Catherine, Toy Industries of Europe.
I don't know if this is the way to do this. It feels odd. Good morning. My name is Catherine Varet. I'm the Director General of Toy Industries of Europe. And, well, as you've already seen, this is really a joint effort. And we're covering many countries here today. I will just go to my part of the presentation. I'll very quickly start with a piece of information that I hope you won't need, which is the emergency exits. So there's one over there and there is one over here, which I think should cover the room, but as I said, I really hope you won't need that. So this is a joint effort between the Swedish Association, the Nordic Toy Association, TIE, and most importantly, the European Commission. The European Commission is the financial backer. We're at the end of the year almost, so we've already done seminars like this in 8 countries, and I'm really happy to see so many participants. I know that we're covering several countries. I've been told that there are people here from Sweden, obviously, Denmark, Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, and Norway. Thank you very much for coming all this way, and a very big thank you to all the speakers as well. It's really great that you're taking the time out and the travel to be with us here today. I will introduce the speakers shortly. I also have another practical piece of information which I hope you will use. You should all have received something that looks like a plastic card. That's actually a USB stick. There's a lot of information on here. There are the toy safety brochures in all languages. the documentation from the European Commission, the latest version of the guidance document, some other guideline documents, so it should be a lot of useful information for you. You know, some that you would normally also find on the internet, but we thought it was easier if we already put it on a stick for you. You should also have received a questionnaire. You don't need to fill that in now because you don't know yet what the day will look like, but hopefully, you know, towards the end of the day you will be able to let us know, you know, what you thought of everything, and we have to report that back to the European Commission. And as Moon-hee has already said, we do hope, you know, that today will be an interactive session, that there will be questions. I think we can manage in more than just Swedish and English. I think if there are questions in Danish, Lars will be able, you know, to help, or I'm sure we will be able to manage. So don't hesitate. If the language is stopping you, you know, we'll find a way around that. Before I give an introduction to the program of the day, I would just very quickly want to say a few words about my organization, so TIE. We are based in Brussels because we talk to the European institutions about future legislation concerning our sector. So we're really there to represent you and your interests. And this is important because people often don't realize that I think it's around 80% of the business rules that you're dealing with in Sweden today actually originate in Brussels. So it is important to have a voice there. We have a mixed membership. We have national toy trade associations, but we also have some corporate members. Some of those corporate members are quite big. Some of them are really quite small. But they all have one thing in common, and that is that they really care about toy safety. And we really, you know, only want safe toys to go onto the market. And that's why we were so happy to work with the European Commission together on this set of seminars to talk about you know, the new Toy Safety Directive. We also in the past have worked with the European Commission in terms of other education pieces. We've done seminars in the past before. We've helped writing the safety brochures, the guidelines and information sheets that the European Commission uses. So that's all really educating the economic operators. But I also wanted to draw your attention to the education of the consumers. This is something that the European Commission now finds very important, and they've started putting emphasis on this since the end of last year. So they're doing a toy safety campaign for consumers, and if you think about it, the consumer is also very important, because it's no use for the industry to be very careful about what kind of age symbols you put on a toy when the consumer in the end finds that their child is more clever at the age of, I don't know, 2, you know, than the normal 2-year-old. So they need to know that those age warnings are important and they need to be taken into account. They also need to know that they can contribute to the safety of their children by going into shops that have a good reputation, by going into shops where you know that you can go back the next day with a complaint. If you buy something on a market stall, that will disappear the next day. You know, or if the price is extremely cheap, if it's too good to be true, then it probably is too good to be true. You know, so that is part also of that consumer education campaign. Now, the European Commission is still they have a video on their website, but also what they do is they simply hand out postcards with safety tips for consumers in the shops. So if there are people amongst you who are interested in this, come and see me during one of the breaks, and I'll put you in touch with the European Commission. They would be very happy to get more retailers involved in this campaign, because the retailer is the connection with the consumer. So then over to the subject of the day, the Toy Safety Directive. I thought I would just very quickly remind all of you why we have a new Toy Safety Directive. And it's actually quite logical if you think that the old directive dates back to 1988. And if you can think that far, you know, the toys that were on the market then and the toys that are on the market now are quite different. So we needed a piece of legislation that was taking all those, new developments into account. There are also new developments in terms of research. We know more about certain substances. Some materials, were not used in 1988 and are used now. So that's another reason, why there's a new directive. The European Commission also specifically wanted to make sure that there were rules in place to deal with a large amount of imports. So that's also being taken into account into the directive. They felt there was a need to enhance the EU border control. So, for those who weren't aware of that, that's a quick recap of the reasons of the new Toy Safety Directive. Then if we look at, this is a very general overview of the main changes. There are some changes in terms of scope, so what is really a toy? And we at TIE, and I'm sure the Nordic Association and the Swedish Association, get some questions about this. Some people are not exactly clear, if something is a toy, or if they put a label on there not for a child, under a certain age, they think, that then that's dealt with. It's not so simple. Also the roles of economic operators. We get some people with questions who think that they are an importer, but in reality, if you look at the legislation, they're actually a manufacturer. So that needs more clarification. Also, there is better traceability because of the imports, of course. That was the point on the imports. Those aspects will be dealt with further in depth by our first speaker, Mr. Per-Olof Sjö from the Swedish Consumer Agency. He will give you further details on those things, especially on the obligations for the different economic operators, which I think is really important to get that really clear. Then, of course, very importantly, we have new and stricter safety requirements, both in terms of physical and mechanical safety, but also hygiene requirements, for instance. The experts that will speak on that this afternoon will explain these requirements in detail. And the conformity procedures used to ensure compliance are, of course, reflected in the technical documentation. Mr. Christian Wetterberg from LEGO will tell you more about that later today. And in terms of chemicals requirements, we have Miss Christina Larsson from Chemi here with us today, who will go into much more detail on those points. There are also new requirements in terms of warnings and packagings. Toys must be marketed with accurate, visible, clearly legible and easy to read warnings. And in the last 2 years also, that is something that we get quite a lot of questions about from people in the value chain. Ms. Vibeke Bennetsen from the Danish Safety Technology Authority and Ms. Yvonne Hilner from the Swedish Customs Agency, as well as Ms. Jurate Kubaitite from the Lithuanian Ministry of Economics, will tell you more about these new obligations and also the checks undertaken by the authorities in this sense, because of course the warnings and the labeling is the first thing that the customs and the authorities will see. So that's something where they certainly will pay a lot of attention. They will also give us more information, I think that will be very interesting, about the results of the controls that are applied. And of course, they fit into the whole enforcement package. You need good legislation, good enforcement, and then the third element, the three pillars basically. The third element is the standards, because of course we need the standards to translate the directive for us, and that will actually be the last part of today. Further information about the standards will be given by Ms. Helle Stalung from the Danish Standards Authority. So she will give you all the necessary details on these this afternoon. A last point, you can find a lot more information. There is some information on the TIE website as well, but I would refer you to the website of the European Commission if you don't find it already on here. I'm not going to say too much about that because Per, I know, is also going to talk about those documents that are available. And I think that's me. Yes, thank you very much. So we can move on to Mr. Sjö to talk about the new rules and what they mean for the different economic operators. Yeah, or I think it works.
Let's see. Yeah, good morning, everyone. And thank you for being here. To all parts involved, and also I'm amazed every time I see so many people longing to hear a bureaucrat for 1 hour talking about regulations. That's always nice. I'll try to brief you on this part. So I hope it's a rehearsal for most of you of your obligations. It is a lot of slides. We'll pass some of them very fast and some others more in detail. And for the ones of you who understands Swedish, we will also publish a more comprehensive presentation than this one at the web page in a couple of weeks, because we had training sessions with the chemical agency and also with the electrical safety agency in Sweden the last week. So we'll work that through again and then publish it so it's available for all of you. But that will be, of course, in Swedish. So, what do the new rules means for your business? Legal obligation of economic operators. Yeah, and I'm from the Swedish Consumer Agency, but I'm not spending any time to present that one because I think that's quite familiar to all of you. But today we have the new directive, of course, and that's why we're here. And for some chemical requirements, we still have the old directive from '88 until 20th of July next year. But we also have this regulation of 765, requirements for accreditation and market surveillance relating to marketing of products, and also the other document 768, which is the new framework for new directives in Europe. And the intention of this one is to harmonize all legislation to make it the same, with the same definitions and the same systems. So this is two documents which is also important. And with another document which is numbered 764, they always referred as the new framework legislation or new approach or vision or something like that in your languages. But the new directive is more comprehensive than the old one. And just to look on these numbers, 48 recitals, 57 articles. Previously we had 16 articles. We have the support of 29 definitions in the directive, and then we have a lot of definitions also in the standards. We have 9 chapters, 5 annexes, in total 37 pages. The old one was 18, a double amount of paper at least. It also is based on the decision 768, and it points for all authorities to perform the market surveillance according to the regulation 765. But also the Commission has published a lot of guides, and these two are the big ones. And as you see, in total, the English version has 264 pages. And I don't know any other area which has so much support as this one. And also the possibility to communicate with all your languages, almost at least involved, because it's translated into all the official languages, which is 21, 22, yeah, and then also to the Chinese. And these two guides are available in all the languages, and also the directive is translated to Chinese. And this gives you a very good opportunity to have discussions with your parts on the other side, so to say. And we have also other guidance documents trying to clear out what is a toy or not, or what is supposed to be for special products. These are living documents. They are revised. So, and all this is on the Commission's webpage. It's from number 1 to number 16, and I think very soon there will be at least one more that I can remember for the moment. But after going all through this basic material, which is all available for you, but let's really focus on why we are here, because it's the first article of the directive. It says that this directive has a twofold message, and the first thing is to ensure that toys used by children are safe, but also to guarantee the smooth functioning of the internal market for the toys. We have also a change here between the old directive and the new one. The new one says whether or not exclusively for use in play by children under 14. And earlier it said clearly intended for the use. So you have to focus on your products and see if this is a toy or not. But this is one of the reasons is that it could have a dual use, not only a toy, it could be used for other things also. But this is also a question we get as an authority all the time. Is my product a toy or not? And also some questions are of course easy to answer, but other ones are a little more severe to try to sort out. But children like to play, and they play with a lot of things, but that doesn't make everything to be a toy. So the scope says that a product, any product or material designed or intended, whether or not exclusively for use in play by children of 14 years of age. But also we have to consider that the play value has to be intended by the manufacturer, or a reasonable foreseeable use which is considered to prevail the declaration of the intended use by the manufacturer. All these words are from the guides or from the directive. But if the manufacturer labels the product as not being a toy, he also have to have support for his claim. And another document is one of these guides that were in the list, number 4, which is actually pointing out at us as member states and the authorities. There's also some kind of supporting document to make the decision if it's a toy or not. So if you have queries, you could, for example, look in this one also. Going on to the definitions, we'll pass through some of them, not all 29. But the most important is making available on the market. And here we have actually a little more comprehensive way here in Sweden. We had to, our government decided that also not only the commercial activities are supposed to be covered by the regulations. So we have also included the public, like the municipality, the governmental hospitals, daycare, whatever. And we had to go through this process of Directive 98/34 to notify this, and it took in total 3 + 3 months before the freezing time was over. So, and then we could publish it in our national legislation. But that means that we are actually putting the same requirements also on a municipality daycare center as on a distributor that you are for the toys. But making available means any supply of a toy for distribution, consumption, or use on the community markets in the course of a commercial activity, whether in return for payment or free of charge. And this special case is placing on the market, which is the first making available, and that's when the toy have to be in line with all the regulations before it's placed on the market. We also have these economic operators, which is the manufacturer, authorized representative, importer, and distributor. And a manufacturer means any natural or legal person who manufactures a toy or has designed or manufactured and markets that toy under his name or trademark. And this means also that the distributor or an importer that imports or places her brand or name on it or makes changes will become a manufacturer. The manufacturer has also the possibility to have an authorized representative, which is established within the community and has a written mandate from the manufacturer to act on his behalf in relation of some specific tasks. And we'll come back to which those are a little later. The importer is a legal person established in the community who places the toy from a third country on the community markets. And the distributor is another legal person in the chain, supply chain, other than the manufacturer or the importer who makes the toy available. And we all call this one, when we put the requirements on all these parts, as economic operators. Obligations for the manufacturer is to ensure that the toy meets the essential safety requirements set out in Article 10 and also in the Annex 2. And obligations they have is to draw up the technical file and keep it for 10 years, carry out the safety and conformity assessment, to draw up the declaration of conformity and also keep that available in 10 years, to affix the CE mark. And this is the manufacturer. And Article 16 also talks about the CE marking, and this is something we see very commonly. It's very clear in the regulation 765. It's supposed to be like this and not any other alternative. And I'm afraid that someday Commission will tell the authorities in the in the member states that you have to take action on this ones. This has, yeah. And I also sometimes I say if they are not even I say now I'm being a little mad, but cannot put the CE mark on as it's supposed to be done, what ensures that the rest of the product will be in line with the regulations. So there are good information on how it's supposed to be done. Other obligations of the manufacturer is that you need to have a control all the way, ensure that the procedures are in place for the production, the compliance. You have to carry out sample testing of market toys. You have to keep a register of complaints of non-conforming toys and also recalls. And if there's a need, also to inform the distributors. You have to ensure that the toy bears batch, type, serial, model number, allowing an identification. This is due to the new requirements on the traceability of the products. You should also have your name, registered trademark, and the address on the toy, or if it's not possible on the toy, on the package. And you also have obligation to ensure that the toy is having the instructions and safety information in the appropriate language. These requirements in bold goes through all the economic operators, so we'll come back to it for the importer and also the distributor. But the obligation for the manufacturer is if they have a reason to believe that a toy they have made available on the market is not in conformity, they have to take corrective measures or to withdraw it or recall it if it's appropriate. Also, they have to inform us as a competent authority if there's a risk with this product, and giving us detailed information of this one and also what they are intended to do. The manufacturer has also to reply on a reasonable request from us as a national competent authority, and also supply us with the information needed and documentation when we are performing our market surveillance. And we would of course like to have this information in a language that we understand. And in our national legislation we have written Swedish, but of course English is quite good also, but we don't have any competence, for example, in Chinese, so that it's not an option. And the manufacturers is also obliged to cooperate to eliminate this risk with this toy if they have placed it on the market. The manufacturer has this possibility to have an authorized representative, and some parts is not allowed to give a mandate on, and that is the safety requirements in Article 10 and the Annex 2. Which means to draw up the technical documentation is, and also the technical documentation is not possible to give away to a mandate. That is only the manufacturers who can do these things. But also it says all the tasks with this in the main mandates the representative has to do. And the manufacturer shall at least give the representative the following rights, and that is to keep the easy declaration of conformity and the technical documentation for 10 years. And I understand that there's discussions going on because this is a way to keep the information inside the company, so to say, if it's in external from the internal markets. If you have a company inside Europe, then you can keep the information there instead of having a discussion with a manufacturer in Asia, for example. But also the representative shall, from a reasonable request of course, provide our authority with the information to demonstrate the conformity of the toy, but shall also cooperate with us if there's an action needed to be taken if it's risks. And of course, depending on how the mandate is written, it's only maybe they have a mandate for some couple of products from a manufacturer, but that's those products we're talking about, not the whole company, so to say. Moving on to the importers, and you will see that the requirements gets lighter and lighter, but they have an obligation just only to place compliant toys on the market, and in some way also to ensure that the manufacturer have followed the correct conformity procedures, and that the manufacturer has drawn up the technical file. So this also puts a lot of requirements on you as an importer. You shall also ensure that the toy bears the conformity marking. That's a CE marking. Also have the traceability marking, so it's possible to identify these ones. You should make sure that the toy has a trademark or company mark and an address. And an address is not a web address, that is a postal address. The toy shall also, of course, have the right documents with it. and the instruction and safety information in the right language, depending on which market. The importer has also an obligation that the storage and transport conditions doesn't jeopardize the toy's compliances, so it doesn't get damaged on the way. The importer has also the obligation to place their name and address on the toy or the packaging. They need to keep a copy of the declaration of conformity for a period of 10 years. And also they are obliged to inform the relevant parties in the supply chain of any complaints where appropriate, and that's why they need to have also this knowledge of where they have bought the toys and where they have delivered them for 10 years. And you see this is the same requirements as for the manufacturer, so you can look on the slides afterwards. I jump over them because the total amount of slides and the time. I spent 6 hours yesterday on the chemical agents in training their inspectors. And now we have 40 minutes, so yeah. Moving on to the distributors, and they have, of course, to act in due care with the regulations relations to the applicable requirements. They have also this obligation of storage and transport conditions, that you don't jeopardize the toys' compliances. They also have this obligation to ensure that the toy is in line with the regulations. CE marking, identification marking, address to the manufacturer, and also if there is an importer, we could have an European manufacturer, of course, and then it's not needed to have an importer's address. They should also make sure that the requirement documents and instructions and safety information is with the toy. And here we are well aware of there are problems for the moment for some parts of this information that stops earlier in the chain. As for example, the identification mark is placed on the declaration of conformity, which so-called ends at the importer and doesn't go further to the distributor with the product, at least. So this is an ongoing discussion, I could say, on a European level of this, but this is the requirement as the directive is written. And they also have these obligations to communicate if they think there are problems with the products, and also to inform the competent national authority, and the same as earlier as we had seen. But this is also quite very important, that you have to also wonder if you have another role in the chain. Are you actually a distributor? Are you an importer, or are you a manufacturer? And that depends on what you do with the toy. Because if you place it on the market under your name or a trademark, or modifies the toy, then you will change your obligations. And then you will become a manufacturer, and then you have to have all the necessary documentation. And this is from the last part of the guide. There are some explanations in the back there. And as you see, that the most obligations are put on the manufacturer, which should know everything about the product from the raw material and the construction and the design of the product controlled through the production, and also test sampling afterwards. And then the requirements gets more onerous, less onerous when you're an importer, and even less when you're a distributor. And if you're an authorized representative, you have to perform all the tasks that you're written in the mandate. And also in the guide you have a table like this. I taken some parts with me, and you see here it's just all the way for the manufacturer. The importer has some obligations and the distributor none for these parts. And for example, to keep a GOC and make it available, the manufacturer and importer really needs to have it in place, but the distributor still should be able to get it and to send it to us. And then we're coming to this marking, and to make sure it's there, it's a obligation for all of the parts to do something, just or to place it to ensure that it's done, or just to verify yes it is on the product that is delivered to us. And also the traceability in the chain, that's you have the obligation for 10 years to know where your products has ended, if you're manufactured to the importer or from the importer to the distributor. That was the parts of the definitions. I know Catherine said something about questions in the end, but is there questions now, I say, and challenge you before we move on? Yeah.
Thank you. A question regarding the declaration of conformity. How fast would an authority expect to have this one delivered by a distributor?
30 days.
30 days. So if you're in the shop asking for a declaration of conformity, looking at a toy, he has 30 days.
Yes, it's in Article 22, I think it says. That's in 30 days we should be able to get the total technical documentation. And this is part of the technical documentation.
Okay, but this is only related to the declaration of conformity.
Yeah, but that's, as I read it now, that's the information I have. And it says the technical documentation should be able to be delivered in 30 days in an appropriate language. And as I see it now, it's one part of the technical documentation. It should also be 30 days. And I think the Commission said that at the meeting this spring also, looking on Jan, who was there. Yes.
Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, we act as an importer and distributor, but we always get a lot of questions from our customers that also could be a distributor in other countries, that they should have the DOC.
No, the distributor is not obliged to have it.
No.
No.
And not a customer either, or retailer.
Not according to the regulations, but yeah, that's up to you, I think. It's not required for you to send it with the product, so to say.
Okay.
But of course, that distributor should be able to deliver it to their national agency, which performs market surveillance actions.
Yeah, but that is upon 30 days then, as you said before.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to relate to that last question. As it says on this slide, how should then a distributor ensure that the required documents are available, if not being given them from earlier in the value chain?
I would say that is something you have to solve business to business. I think you should have that in your contracts, because this is the regulation, and regulations doesn't put these requirements to deliver all the time, so to say, with the product, the declaration of conformity, and that is one of the problems for the traceability. But I could be mean and say that if they don't know where the product is going, of course there's a lot of batch numbers on the products, but at least the money goes back to where the product came from. So there is an information flow, at least for the financial part. But of course I know it's not the same thing as finding the right declaration of conformity for just that serial number or batch number. So I don't have any solution for it, and I don't know if I have any further information either at this point. But there is a discussion going on this matter.
Any more questions, please?
Get some more
Put up
water.
your finger. It's better to ask now than when you have the problem.
Yes, just water. Did I make myself so clear?
Yeah, one more.
Could an importer make the right declaration of conformity?
No.
No, never?
No.
Okay.
That is only the manufacturer. We could roll back to the beginning of the manufacturer. This is only the manufacturers who is allowed to do these things, to make sure that the toy is in line with the safety requirements, to draw up the technical file and carry out the safety and conformity assessments, and also to draw up the easy declaration of conformity when it knows that the toy is fulfilling the requirements, and to affix the CE mark. That's the manufacturer's work to do.
Any more questions? Please come up now. Yes?
If you have a reliable partner that you're a manufacturer that you're buying from as an importer, do you need the DOC on each time to buy that item, or is it enough that you have it one time and a contract saying you should be able to get it? Do you need it to follow the goods each time?
It depends on how the product is marked, I would say, because the identification code or the traceability is on the product, and then you should also be able to connect this with easy declaration of conformity. So if you use number 1 for all the deliveries, could be a possibility to have it delivered once, but if you have a recall, then you have to recall all number 1s. So that depends on the structure of the manufacturing, and also, but I would say that is not such a good idea, actually. I think it's better to, I wouldn't say for each product, but for a specialized certified a certain amount of goods. But that's business to business problem to solve.
Still possible to ask questions?
I have a question regarding the submission of technical files from manufacturer, let's say from Far East.
Yeah.
So suppose they submit the technical files, for example, in Chinese, and they, of course, has to be translated in at least English.
Yeah.
And that translation, does it need an authorized party to prove it's the right translation? Or the importer or distributor can just do it?
I don't have an answer to that one. I haven't come to that point yet, but of course it would be very nice to at least somebody who says that this is correctly translated, because I don't have language skills enough to know that, actually.
When you say somebody, that should be testing
The
company?
preferable, yes, but I don't know what kind of requirements we actually could put on that one, because if we do this by ourselves to put it on a translation to check something, and we find out that this is not correctly translated, and then your role will be forgery, I would say. But for the moment, I don't think I could put such a requirement that it's. I think that's your obligation to make sure it's correctly translated, and I don't know if the other authorities had something else to put in there, or has it been discussed somewhere? Jan is waving.
Thank you. It's a requirement from the directive that it is available, and it is available in understandable language. So it rests with the importer or the manufacturer to make sure that the translated version is okay. The problem for you is that if the translation version is wrong, then we will judge your product accordingly, because we can only deal with the translated version we get from you. That's the official document we can relate to. In principle, we do not know the Chinese version.
No.
Thank you.
Maybe I will be saying the same thing as you just said, but it has to be available in one of the official languages. So the translation into Chinese could not happen on a recent request. It should already be available in one of the official languages.
Yeah. Good points.
I just have to ask, does that go the other way around as well? I mean, if, for example, the Finnish customs seem to do a lot of testing, and when we get information from the Finnish customs, we get the reports in Finnish. So we have the same problem if we don't understand Finnish, which we don't.
No. Yeah, I would say that.
Any comments from Finnish side? Yeah, Anna?
Yes, I'm from the Finnish Safety and Chemicals Agency, so I can't really say for the Finnish customs do, but in practice there are two official languages in Finland, Finnish and Swedish, and that's how you should manage to do business in Finland also with the authorities. But the authorities accept English, but we are not obligated to send you any English versions because the official languages are Finnish and Swedish. But the test reports are pretty easy to follow because they are numbered according to the standard. Yeah.
So what I hear is that you should demand to get it in Swedish if you cannot understand Finnish. I think that's reasonable for us who do not understand Finnish. Somebody else who have a question here? Now?
Shall we continue?
You have more? You continue?
Yeah,
Thank
you. We are moving on to this, the safety parts and the safety requirements. And in Article 10 you have the essential safety requirements, which states that toys, including the chemicals they contain, shall not jeopardize the safety or health for the user or third parties when they are used as intended or in a foreseeable way, bearing in mind in the behavior of children. And this is maybe not so easy all the time to understand what children will do or can do. But the ability of the user and, where appropriate, their supervisor shall be taken into account, in particular in the case of toys which are intended for the use by children under 36 months or by other specified age groups. And this is, we have special requirements for the younger children. And the labels affixed and instruction for use which accompanies the toys shall draw the attention of the user and their supervisors to the inherent hazards and risk of harm involved in using the toy, and to the ways of avoiding such hazards and risks. and the toy shall comply with essential safety requirements during their foreseeable and normal period of use. And this is a lot of things that you have to sort out as a manufacturer. How long will my toy be used? What is the normal period? Hopefully a little longer than just opening the package and it falls out in one piece and not many pieces. If it's not supposed to be many pieces, of course. And this is supposed to be sorted out by the safety assessment, and that comes in the afternoon. But the safety assessment means that you have to carry out an analysis of the hazards that the toy may present, as well as an assessment of the potential exposure to such hazards. And the way to do this is that you need to use a conformity assessment procedure. And here is where we're moving into the standards. And the normal way, hopefully, is that you actually have all your risk covered by your standards, so you can use one. And that means if this standard is published in the official journal, and for the moment we have 71-1, -2, -8, and also the electrical standards EN 62115. And in that case, you have to use the internal production procedure that is in Module A of Annex 2 of the Decision 768. The alternative is to use an easy type examination, and then you have to use Module C of Annex 2 of the same decision. And this is if the risks of your product doesn't have any standard that covers all the risks, or if you have chosen not to follow the standard for any reason, or if the standard has a restriction which says that you're not allowed to use this in total. We had that for impact testing of swings, which is now deleted. Or if you considers that a toy needs a third-party verification due to the nature, design, construction, or purpose of the toy. So you always have the possibility to use this part, but of course that is a little more comprehensive maybe. Moving on to the technical documentation. And it shall contain all relevant data or details, in particular contain the documents which is listed in Annex 4. And there also one of these guides is on technical documentation, which answers a lot of questions, maybe not all of them that you have, but at least there is a lot of information there. And also here we have this 30-day requirements to send us the technical documentation on a reasonable request, of course. But also if it's an urgent risk, so to say, we have the possibility to require this in a shorter time if it's justified. And also as a market surveillance authority, we can require that a test is performed by a notified body, and you will have to take that expense if you haven't fulfilled your obligations. So this is some of the tools we have. And that was a very fast presentation for all these slides. So questions on this last part?
Please. You have the possibility now. And if you have a lot of questions in the afternoon, after you left from here, you have to call and you have to write and send mails and so on. Here, it is possible to get the answer right away.
And get in line in the email list.
Please. Everything is clear. The problem is all those outside who do not follow all these rules.
Yeah. I'll be here all day if you have questions, and I think I've met quite many people of you who are sitting here today. So
it's really fast.
Yeah,
we are ahead in the program.
This is exceptional. This has never happened in all of the seminars we did in other countries. So thank you. Stuck to your promise because I was worried. I was wondering now, we're supposed to have a coffee break, but we're a bit too early. In the next slot, we've got 1 hour for 4 presentations. So I was going to propose to already do one of, is that all right? That's your presentation, is it? So maybe we'll just move to a view from the Swedish Customs Agency on import and market controls, and then we'll take the coffee break. I think that's the best idea. Thank you very much.
And I only press...
Yes, it's very easy.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Well then, good morning to you. Do you all hear me well? Yeah, okay. My name is Yvonne Hillner, and I work at the Swedish Customs as a customs advisor in the field of product safety, but also intellectual property right. And I'm very glad that I got this opportunity to inform you a little bit of our work. It's a challenge to do it in 15 minutes, but I saw I got 20, so maybe we can do it. And don't hesitate to ask me if you feel you have the question right in your mouth, so just shout. The legal base for the cooperation between customs and the market surveillance authorities is in the regulation 265, and this regulation entered into force the 1st of January 2010. And under Section 3, the controls of products entering the community market, you can find the Articles 27 to 29 that takes up the controls of product entering the community market. And these articles also gives the power for Customs and Market Surveillance Authority to act together at the border. In Sweden, we are organized in this that there are 15 market surveillance authorities for which SWEDAC, the Swedish Board of Accreditation and Conformity Assessment, is the national contact point. In Sweden, customs has no power to perform or practice market surveillance at the border. Therefore, we have to cooperate very closely with our market surveillance authority. The organization throughout the member states are not are not similar. They are very different. So in France, for example, the customs can perform market surveillance at the border, the French customs, but not in Sweden. So we have and as you see, there are 15 market surveillance authority and only 1 customs authority. So we have to be very efficient in this. So therefore, all the authorities, the market surveillance authorities, the customs, and even the National Board of Trades meet 5 times a year in something that we call the Market Surveillance Council. And there we discuss product safety issue on a more strategic level. And I can come back to that, where you can get all the information on the website for the Market Surveillance Council. So then, what can customs do? Well, if, for example, now as we have the Swedish Consumer Authority as one of these 15 authorities, market surveillance authorities, if they makes requests to customs, we can provide them with information about import and export. And this we do, we have all these in our customs database. You know, when you import, for example, toys to Europe, you need an import declaration for the customs. And there are a lot of information on these import declarations that we need to have in our database. You know, we're looking for a lot of things in the import declarations, because you have to pay taxes, you have to make the right tariff number, so you can have everything right. And so we also could trace and see the import and export from Sweden. The MSAs, the market surveillance authorities, are always free to contact us if they want to check a specific product group at the border, or even maybe a specific importer. And before the goods are released for free circulation, so we can give them some advices, and they also what I would say is act on request. So they have to make contact with our risk analysis at the customs to discuss how is the best way to act, because customs is the authority that have the power to stop the goods, and the market surveillance authorities has the power to act market surveillance. So this we have to keep in mind. In accordance to Article 27.3, it says, if customs, when they do other kinds of import controls, find products as well that they suspect to be dangerous or not to comply with the EU safety rules, then we at customs are obliged to take contact to the relevant market surveillance authority as soon as possible. This is something that came with the new regulation, that we are obliged to do so. So we can't just put the goods away and said we haven't seen it. We have to make contact. Customs also try to be active in other ways, such as giving information on our website, to give information when there are visitors, maybe our politicians, other member states, etc., to customs. We also participate in different kinds of activities, such as various product seminars, and in the export working group in the Commission. So we tried to be not only at the border, but also where there are possibilities to give information. That is one of the things that why I'm here today, because we want to give the information what we can do. The corporations then, and the general rule, we had to, as I said, the market surveillance authorities and customs has to be very efficient. And so we have developed some routines between us where we had discussed responsibilities. And the general rule, and this is beyond the 27.3 I just mentioned, is that the initiative to take action at the border, it lies with market surveillance authorities, and it's in their roles of expertise. And the relevant market surveillance authorities, they decide, they are the one that decides what products they want to check at the border, and they send in their request to customs to see that we have enough resources for the time, that we can come into risk analysis, that we can do it. Maybe the Swedish Consumers Agency make contact with Swedish Customs, says, is it possible for you to, under October, check toys from China? No, I'm kidding. Toys of a certain kind from a certain country or port or so what on. And then we have to take decision within customs if we have enough resources and if the times are right. And the Swedish Consumer Agency also have to make contact and have a close cooperation with the risk analysis. And then we can make decisions from customs. Yes, it's okay for us, we can cooperate in this operation. Otherwise, maybe we don't have all the resources in place, then we can discuss, is it probably we can do it in November or whatever. So this is, as I said, it's need to be, in Sweden we are lucky enough to have this very informal and close cooperation, and therefore we see an increase of seizures in this area, and we also think it will increase even more. Then when the product is stopped, customs always contact market surveillance authority. When we have target the seizure, they target the goods that they want to look into, we always make a first assessment to the market surveillance authority to give them a chance to say, okay, you have located it. Maybe at that time they can't just make the market surveillance very physically. They say it's okay with the documentation, then you can let the goods go. But they have still the opportunity to do the market surveillance on the inner market. But the ordinary is that we make a physical check at the border and even documentable check. To do this, customs has to make a 3-day decision. This is a 3-day decision that we send to the importer that we are going to hold the goods for 3 working days. And under these 3 days, the market surveillance authorities, they can take a closer look to the product and to the documentation, but they must then after act within these 3 days. They have to do something, because if they don't tell customs we want to take measures or you can release the goods will be released after 3 working days, because we have no power to keep the goods any longer. But the normal procedure is that we get something from the market surveillance authority. Either they have, maybe they have a decision to ban the goods. It's a very dangerous product and they can make a decision to ban it. Then we do a decision that we can't release the goods for free circulation. The responsibility to decide whether the goods are in compliance with the EU legislation or not is on the market surveillance authorities in their roles of expert authority. Customs can't judge in these. We are no experts on these. We don't know the standards of the products. We don't know if it's harmonized or non-harmonized and whatsoever. But we have a close contact with our market surveillance authority, and they decide it from their point of view, and then customs decision can follow upon the decisions from market surveillance. Do you have any questions on this part? Or is it crystal clear? Yes?
Thank you. My question is only, is all this within the harmonized procedures for the whole of EU, or is anything of this specifically stated in Sweden? Such, for example, that responsibility to decide whether or not the goods is in compliance, is it that from the EU legislation we can read that that would always be up to the market surveillance authority, or is it a Swedish decision that in Sweden we will always let the market surveillance authorities take the decision?
This is depending on the organization in the member states. As I said, that the French customs, they work differently because they have to power to do the market surveillance. So they also have the knowledge of the products and the standards and what's on. But in Sweden, this is how we work.
Yep.
So if you look throughout the member states, you will find it's a little bit different.
We know that, yes.
Yes. It's on? Yeah? Yeah, so that's my answer to that. Anything else? No. Here I will show you some examples of products that we have worked together with Swedish Consumer Agency and was stopped at the border. One of the first products that we were educated on from the Swedish Consumer Agency, it was a novelty lighters. You all know there was a decision from the Commission that this could not be placed on the market. And therefore our customs officer were trained to look very carefully for these products. And these novelty lighters here, they were found in a small consignment at Arlanda airport. The customs officer that found them had just been at that education, as I said, training, so they knew what they should do. They stopped the goods and they immediately made contact to the Swedish Consumer Agency, and there were no problem for them to act within the 3 days. We made a 3 days decision, and I will say Swedish Consumer Agency act within 1 day, I think, and made the decision that the product should be banned. And we made the decision that it could not be released for free circulation. So these novelty lighters then after were destroyed and could do no harm. Because as you see in the picture, the flame there, one of our customs officer, when they looked at the product and they suspected it was a lighter, he came to this little, what do you call it? Yeah, you press, yeah, and nearly burned himself on the flame. And then, you know, when it's in hands of children and all that. And this is a rather, I've seen a lot worse than this. The mobile phones, they are novelty lighters. You know, children do as their parents do. What do you do with mobile phone? You talk in them. And then they press a button and they get burned and so on. We also found some dolls, and these were inside a container in the harbor of Gothenburg. Our customs officer, they looked, they did some other controls, and they saw these dolls, and they immediately were suspicious because there was, and you see in the stomach of the doll, there is some electrical part. And this was very easy to take apart, and there were smaller parts in this, so they reacted here as well, and also contacted the Swedish Customs Agency. And we have special contact persons between us, so that the contact goes very quick, either email or telephone. So approximately in a couple of hours, approximately a day, we make contact. And they immediately reacted on this one as well, so it was stopped. And the last picture I have is these toy dogs. There were two kinds, a little bigger one and then the small one. And you can see they also have some batteries in their stomach because they are moving. And when one of the customers looked into them, the nose fell off one of the dogs. So these kind of products are not so difficult for customs officer to see that they are not they are suspected not to fill the rules. What I also could say is the problem is the CE marking. We, as I said, are no experts on this, but what we can see, I also dealing with intellectual property rights, and what we can see on almost every product there also a CE marking. So I only say this because we have to reflect on this, because there are false CE marking circulating everywhere. And I don't know, of course I then need that, we need to take in documentations, and our market surveillance authorities also ask the importer for the declarations, and then they can see if it's okay or not. Our information, as I said, we have two websites that I think it could be very valuable to you if you want to look inside. The one is our own, tullverket.se, Swedish Customs, and the other one is called marknadskontroll.se. And this is the website that we have constructed under the Market Surveillance Council, and there you have links to all the authorities involved. So if you are an importer or company or whatever, you want to have an overview of this, I can recommend you to go into this website. Then you have links directly to all the Market Surveillance Authority, to Customs, to the National Board of Trade, and so on. Yes, I think that's all. So please, if you have some more questions, don't hesitate.
We have time for questions, so please come up. If you have some, I know we are coming back to the issues, but by other speakers, but still, if you have a question now, please come up with it. I know we are in the Nordic countries. It's much easier to understand everything here, Catherine, so that's why we are ahead of schedule. No one?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Outside there will be coffee and tea and orange juice and also a small sandwich. So please help yourself out there. And please come back at the latest at 12 o'clock. Thank you.